Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Silver Savage podcast. As you can see, I started working a little bit on the background. Actually, got to give a shout out to my brother Danny, who just walked in right before we started recording this and said, "You need to do something about your background." I'm like, "I know," they didn't get around to it. So he quickly put his Masada tactical flag behind me, so it's not just a plain white wall. So thank you, Danny, for doing that. Really, I'm just eager to get into today's episode. So with no further ado, let's get into it. All right, guys. Well, welcome back. Cheers. Today, I want to talk about a topic I've been thinking about a lot the last few days. We had the first Silver Savage retreat this past Friday. We had a bunch of our coaching clients there, so that was good times, but also an opportunity for me to learn a little more about what are some of the needs of the people that are listening and actually following the Silver Savage group and platform as a whole. And one question that kept coming up came up at some of the coaching clients, but also came up from messages I've been getting from you and offline interactions about how to deal with adversity. Adversity is something we're all going to deal with one point or another, whether we want to or not. It is just one part of life, and how to deal with it is a challenge for a lot of people. And I'll be honest, I had my share of adversity, right? Those of you that heard a little bit about my background know that from the medical standpoint, I had a tumor removed from my spinal cord, so I'm in the peak condition. I am teaching self-defenses. I'm an operator on tier 1 units, and all of a sudden I have a tumor that paralyzes me literally from my waist down, and I have to go under surgery, which could have in theory left me, if successful, paralyzed from the neck down, because it was C2 to C5. So mentally, that was an adversity I had to deal with. The recovery since that day, this was 17 years ago, has been a challenge. So that was certainly an adversity I had to deal with. On the relationship side, right, I had adversities on that as well. I had some marriages that didn't work out as I intended. I had failed relationships with partners, failed relationships with employees, failed relationships with family members. So certainly I had to deal with adversity on that. And the one adversity that most people refer to when they talk to me about adversity is on the business side. So a lot of our listeners and a lot of our coaching clients are entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs to be, and dealing with adversity, dealing with challenges is something that's always on the forefront. And the question always comes, how do you deal with it? How do you manage it? And the honest truth, it comes down to, you have two options, and both of them are legitimate options. Option number one is give up. Listen, entrepreneurship is not for everybody. I said that in a prior podcast. I'll try to link it to this one. Not everybody is built to be an entrepreneur. It is stressful. You are responsible for everything yourself, which on my mind is a great thing, because that means I own all the successes. On the flip side, the biggest challenge is that you also own all the failures, and not everybody can manage that as well. I struggle with it from time to time, which is normal. Most people do. Even the most successful entrepreneurs I know, multi-billionaires, still struggle with it. It is not fun to lose or fail from time to time, and not everybody can manage it. So it is certainly not for everybody. So one option is you give up. Maybe it's not for you. Maybe you go and do something else. But if you've decided that entrepreneurship, being a business owner is for you, and again, I'm using that as an example, but truly any adversity, right? Some things are just, you may decide that it's not worth the fight. If it's losing weight, if it's a failed relationship with a loved one, whatever it is, sometimes you may just decide it's not worth the fight. But other times you can decide, I am gonna come back from it, and then your only option is to learn from it and to move forward. The way I always say it to my kids, I say it to my staff, I say it to whoever would listen, honestly, it's I never lose. I either learn or I win. And in my mind, learning is winning, therefore I always win. So even adversity hides lesson in it. And if I am smart enough and capable enough to recognize those lessons and learn from those lessons and grow from those lessons, then it wasn't in vain. Because ultimately, if you follow my morning briefs, I said that recently, my goal is to fail. I actually learn better from failures than I do from successes. If I fail though, and I learn and I grow better for it, I fail again, I fail bigger, but then I grow bigger because of that, then failure is not in vain. So that is only my two options. Now, if I want to recover from that adversity, right? Learning is great and learning is good, and we want to certainly do that, but ultimate goal is to recover from adversity for just the sake of learning. Honestly, I can read a book and learn just as much. I don't need my personal experience. The idea of having that personal experience is so I can learn from it and apply that lesson. I need to recover from that lesson. The challenge, or not the challenge, but really what I intend on doing is recover as fast as possible. This is the thing, if I linger on that adversity, if I linger on whatever the failure or the challenge was, the longer I stay in that mindset, the less likely I am to recover from it, the less likely I am to convince myself that I can still do it. More likely I am to decide to give up. So I need to quickly recover from it. And in order for me to recover quickly, and this is why I tell everybody, it always comes down to action. I need to start doing something. I need to take that tiny little step, the tiny little lesson that I learned, and start applying something to move me in the right direction. Action is always is better than just talking about it. When I talk and I coach my clients, I always say, well, we're going to start with doing some goal planning, and we're going to write steps to reach that goal, and we're going to break it down into smaller steps. But the whole idea is to get to the smallest steps possible, because ultimately I need to do something about it. I can have the best plan in the world and the best dream in the world, the best idea in the world, but as long as I'm not doing anything about it, it's bullshit. It just doesn't amount to anything. So action is the most important part of everything. So if I want to recover quickly from any adversity, I need to start doing something. And this is where having a goal in mind is quick. It's best, right? Because if I have a goal in mind, I can recover quicker because I have something I'm working towards. So I want to learn from it. And then what I want to do is I want to pivot quickly. Whatever the failure was, I want to recognize, okay, what's a failure so now I don't do it again. Now, people think of pivots typically in the literal sense of doing a 180. And a pivot is not a 180. A pivot can be a small little modification, a small change, a small adjustment to course that would allow me to bypass whatever the challenge or the obstacle was before. So I want to learn from whatever that adversity was, whatever the failure was, whatever mistake I made, make a pivot or make a change, and then apply it as soon as possible. I need to keep moving forward. Now, again, the closer the goal is in the future, the smallest goal possible, the more likely I am to succeed. So if my goal is to make $1 million, let's say I'm just using a round number, and I just tried something and I failed, I can give up. $1 million is a big goal, right, for most people. Or I can say, listen, I don't need to make $1 million tomorrow, but what's a small adjustment I can make right now to make $1,000? And if I make $1,000, because success breeds other success, right? It's a mental shift. It creates a snowball effect, right? It gets me motivated. There's a reason that Dave Ramsey, for example, when we talk about getting out of debt, said, don't tackle the credit card with the highest interest necessarily. Tackle the one with the smallest balance on it. Because if I finish that one, if I pay that one off, then I created a positive momentum. Success breeds success, and I'm more likely to get engaged and pay the next one, and then the next one, and ultimately you pay the one with the highest interest rate on it as well. So if I apply that same philosophy to everything else in life, if I want to recover from any kind of failure, if I have a short-term goal that I can work towards real quick, I can make that quick adjustment and get and work towards it, I'm more likely to be successful. And once I reach that goal, okay, what's the next goal after that? And now I work my way out of that disparity that I was in because I failed the time before. So I need to find a goal, adjust my course, and work towards the goal. This is the next thing I need to do. I need to understand that challenges are always going to come. There's always going to be something, and I need to remain focused. In order for me to remain focused, I need to understand what are some things that are going to drive me away from being focused. If I can pre-plan for those distractions in a sense, then I can better negotiate them when the moment comes. So some things I need to understand is, for example, circumstances. There are going to be circumstantial things that are outside of my control that are going to affect my success. So if my failure, my adversity, whatever it is something that I have no control over. It could be an employee that you had zero idea is going to betray you. It can be the weather. It can be a client that you thought would be your biggest client ever, all of a sudden shutting out its door. I mean, there's nothing you can do about it. It's just the way it is. That's just the way of the world, and you just have to accept it. Understand that if you try to adjust circumstances that are beyond your control, all you're going to do is you're going to say yourself a failure. You're going to be distracted and you're going to be disappointed because you can't control it. So it's going to be a moot point. You're going to waste a lot of energy, a lot of resources on something that's not going to change anyways. So instead of doing that, your better approach should be, okay, let's focus again on what was my goal. Let's then refocus on the goal, because my goal is not just that one client. I have a bunch of other clients or potential clients. So that client that I was going for, and for whatever reason didn't work out because of circumstances outside of my control, it is what it is. Just let it go. Stay focused on the next client, the next short-term goal, and go after that one. Go for the next one, because ultimately that's going to pay off. The other thing is I need to understand that there's going to be some distractions along the way. As I mentioned earlier, there's going to be things that are going to seem more alluring, more appealing. Let's say you're going for a goal and there's just like an opportunity to decide that you initially didn't plan on, but all of a sudden it's coming on and you're like, you know what, I can go for that one. It's just like a low-hanging fruit that I can just go and tear right now. But really what that does, it pulls you away from your bigger goal. And those distractions are always going to be there and they're going to add up. And once you go after one distraction and you kind of left the main path you were on, from that one distraction, you're going to see another distraction. Before you know it, you are so far off the path you were on that you're never going to reach your goal. So if I want to recover from adversity, and if I want to stay focused on my goal, I need to avoid distractions. And as those come, I need to understand, listen, they're going to be there, but I just got to really understand that is not benefiting my bigger purpose, and I'm going to stay focused on the road on. So don't let those take you off course. And eventually, this is the one thing that I try to explain to everybody. Things will work out. Challenges will come, obstacles will come. You can make millions of dollars and you can lose millions of dollars. But eventually, if you keep working at it, if you keep concentrating on action, forward momentum, eventually you will succeed. It's just the way of the world. There's no way around it, okay? When a baby learns how to walk, he falls many, many times. It doesn't give up just because it fell once, fell twice, fell 100 times. They're going to keep trying. And eventually, they're going to walk and they're going to run, right? Same thing happens to you and same thing happens in business. I am a prime example of someone that tried many, many things. And if you know my story, so to give a quick synopsis of my trajectory on the entrepreneurial side. So when I opened my first school, right off the get-go, I was sued by a former partner, and I'm just starting to open a tiny little business and I'm being sued by a multimillionaire that's trying to bully me for something I didn't do. I could give up. That's a big obstacle. That's a big distraction, but I don't like being bullied. So I fought it for 3 years and I won that fight, and I kept growing. And then as I kept growing, other things happened. I was smart enough to open my first business during the 2007-2008 economic collapse, and everybody that would have been a client all of a sudden decided, everybody that committed essentially to be a client said, dude, I don't know, I love you, I would love to join, but right now I can't, money's tight, outside of my control. So I could give up, or I could understand, listen, that is not my control. I can't do anything about it. Can't do anything about those clients. Let me go after other clients, which I did. And we grew from a tiny little facility to a bigger facility. And then other opportunities came up to increase my vision, to continue on the path I was going, bigger goals, right? So I started with smaller goals and I went to bigger goals. And as I went for those bigger goals, other challenges happened. Challenges with clients, challenges with employees. You guys know, because I mentioned it many, many times, but about 6 months ago, a former employee decided to fuck me over, for lack of a better term. I could have given up. I could have said, fuck it, this is not worth it. There's a lot going on. Economy is in the shit. You know, my employee just fucked me over. Biggest contract ever is possibly going in the drain. Or I could learn from it, could make adjustments, and could keep going. And not only did I salvage the one contract, but I learned how to build a better team. I stayed focused on my bigger goal, and I got new clients, even bigger clients. And the trajectory is going back up. So the way your trajectory is always going to be, it's going to be a big zigzag, peaks and valleys, right? But hopefully your peaks are greater than your valleys ever are. You're going to make millions, you're going to lose millions, you're going to make millions again. But as long as you keep at it, eventually you will succeed. Eventually you will win. That's what you have to remember. That's what you got to stay focused on, because otherwise there's nothing that's going to drive you to keep going. I want to leave you with one last statement, and that is something that I learned from several coaches. They gave it different terms, but the one thing that kept coming up is what's called the law of averages. If I go, let me use hospitals as an example because that is one of my bigger companies. If I go after hospitals, some hospitals are gonna turn out to be huge contracts, millions. Other contracts are gonna end up being tens of thousands, right? So in the big scheme of things, peanuts, right? Pennies compared to whatever else can be. And that's fine. I still keep doing what I'm doing because if some, let's say, are about 25%, some are 50%, but some are 100% of what I wanted, ultimately, it's all growth. It's all averages up and it's all working in my benefit. So as you keep being driven and stay focused on your goal, understand that not everything is going to work quite the way you expected it. And that is fine. Okay. So the way you deal with adversity, to close the circle for you, you just don't quit. You just stay focused on your goal. You just keep putting one foot in front of the other. You make adjustments as needed and you keep pushing. That's the only way to win the game. I hope this was beneficial for you. I hope you guys stay motivated. Again, as always, if you have any questions, please let me know. Shoot them over. Keep sharing and commenting and messaging me with any information that you want me to share. Please share this with other people that you think are going to get value of it. And until next time, stay savage.